Hi guys, it's Shayla again from Freckle Finance, and today my video is going to be answering the questions that were asked in my Q&A. If you're new to my channel, make sure you click that subscribe button below. I upload videos on personal finance, financial independence, my pregnancy, lifestyle videos, and what it was like and is still currently like moving from Canada to the US. So I have my phone in front of me here that I'm going to be reading off the questions from, and the first question is from Melody V, and she asks, would you ever show us your budget? And my answer for that is going to be no, I will never show you my entire budget. I have given you the amounts of sinking funds, and I have stated other amounts that I have spent throughout time, and I'm considering putting forward what we do actually spend on a lot of different things like food and clothing and stuff like that a month. And so I am considering doing videos like that, but we are just not comfortable disclosing our income. And because of that, I cannot disclose my budget. The next question is from Absolute Pandemonium. Hey, for anyone who doesn't know, check out her channel. She is also pregnant. I believe we are within a week of each other in pregnancy, so that's pretty cool. And she asks, what is one way living in America is better than Canada, and what is one way that it is worse? So I can't make this video regarding the US in general. I will make it to the specific location that I used to live and the specific location I live now. And so definitely one of the absolute best parts about moving to Northern California is the weather is so much better. When I went back home for Christmas, I'm like, what is this snow? And you know, dealing with we dealt with a rental car that did not have winter tires on it, and I was like, you know what, I am so happy we moved away from this. As well, this is a personal thing that would be for me and maybe other people with CMT like I have. The cold makes it so that I can't like use my hands properly when they're very cold, or even just slightly cold. So basically I lose functionality in my hands and probably my feet as well, but the hands are the ones I notice the most when they get too cold. This is honestly something I thought was completely normal until one day I came in from a walk outside. I was walking around Toronto, the beautiful scenery near the lake, and I took off my shoe with my feet and I tried to pick up my shoe to put it onto the shoe rack, and I physically couldn't lift it up. And that's when my husband was like, that's not something that is normal. So I've been honestly really enjoying that I haven't had that as an issue, because up until last year I didn't even realize that was something that not everyone experienced. And I would often come in from work. I went for walks on breaks. I would come in from work and I couldn't type as fast anymore, so I would lose the ability to type as fast, and I couldn't write as well. I couldn't hold pencils as well. It's a fairly minor inconvenience in terms of, you know, how it affects my everyday life, but that was something that it was a bit scary when it would happen, when it was really bad. And that would be me like trying to keep my hands warm. And it still does get cold enough here that happens sometimes, but it's like to a minor level where, you know, I'm still able to pick up my shoe and move it somewhere. I would say the one way that is worse is just the lack of universal health care. Now, although I have a really good insurance plan through my employer, we still have to pay out of pocket for a lot of things that we wouldn't normally have to pay for. And just knowing that there's other people in this country who don't have it that good, that to me makes Canada better, just that we do have a universal healthcare system. And I know I've made a video on it. There's pros to some aspects of the American healthcare system, but I don't think it makes up for the fact that there are a lot of people who can't afford to get basic medical care or preventative care that could save them even more money in the long run. So that's unfortunately the biggest downside for me living in the US, even though I'm not super affected by it, but I still am. There are still things that are not fully covered by insurance. Dental care is covered way less, at least through what we have here. So we have found ourselves actually like getting second opinions. My husband had an estimate for $550 of out-of-pocket expenses for the dentist, and so our reaction was, we are going to get a second opinion, because that's a lot of money for us to pay out of pocket. Now, there should always be reason within Canada, I guess, is to get a second opinion, but if you get diagnosed wrong, you just go to another doctor. You don't have to pay for it. So that would be hoping that you didn't get some major surgery or you weren't paying for medication that was unnecessary. So the next question is from Annie Tasker, and she says, have you tried or seen any American food that you think is crazy? Honestly, I read these questions as they were posted, and I've been trying to think of anything that I saw here that was crazy. Definitely nothing in California. I will say that I love the more Mexican flavors added into the food here. Before we even moved here, before we considered moving here, I was making a lot of Mexican food at home because I love Mexican flavor. Now, that being said, I don't know that I could handle like food from Mexico because I hear it's very spicy and I'm not very good with spicy food, but you know, like the American Mexican food is very, very good, and there's lots of good restaurants here for that. However, that got me thinking about what food did I grow up with or am I accustomed to that either is not a cuisine here or doesn't exist here. And this is so funny, but there is a soup in Canada called Habitant pea soup, and it's considered a French-Canadian soup. I think that I saw maybe a pea soup that was sold in a can at the grocery store, but it just did not look at all what the soup that I grew up with. And prior to moving, I was eating this soup about once a week. And so I actually have a friend coming from BC to visit me, and I've asked her to pick up a lot of that for me because I am missing that like crazy. And there's not really any good white cheddar mac and cheese. Now that is not at all good for you. And the pea soup honestly is not that great for you either because it has lard as an ingredient, but totally tastes so good. However, yeah, you guys don't really have white cheddar craft dinner as we Canadians call it, or mac and cheese as you guys call it. And we have an off-brand called President's Choice, or it's a store brand, and they make the absolute best white cheddar mac and cheese. And sorry, I'm going off on a crazy tangent. Maybe I could do some videos later on comparing some of stuff in Canada to the US. There's not really that much, but I was talking to my friend who's coming from BC, and I asked her if she knew what a hot beef or hot chicken sandwich was, and her idea of it was completely different than what I grew up with. So I went and asked my husband, and he definitely had the same thing as me. So this is something I'm definitely going to feed to my kids. I haven't had it in a long, long time, but it's basically like a piece of bread and then some form of meat. It's usually after, you can find them in some restaurants, or my family would just eat it after holidays because we'd have all these ingredients. And then you put out the piece of bread, and then you put hot gravy on top, and then peas, and you eat it with a fork and knife. So the next question comes from Ada Purdy, and she says, what were you like growing up? So I was a bit of a weird child, I will say. First of all, when I was very, very young, and I have a hard time even acknowledging that I was this way, but this is what people tell me is, you know, maybe up until grade 1, I was an extremely, extremely quiet and shy kid. That is not at all what I was like later on. And if I had met someone that I knew at that age and they said that, my friends would be like, I can't see it. And honestly, I can't see it either. But that was apparently the truth. And I think what happened is my mom had told me that if, you know, I smile and because I'd be like, oh, I don't have very many friends. And my mom kind of said, you know, talk to people more or whatever. And I kind of just came out of my shell a bit as well. And so I became a little too talkative, and something I'm still struggling with and working on today, but I am a very, very chatty person, which is totally stark difference to what I was like as a child. As well, in my teenage years, I had anxiety fairly bad. I think it's something I didn't even realize was that bad until I was like already well into adulthood. I thought that I was just having like teen angst, but I would have some like weird reactions to stuff that just doesn't go with the normal teen anxiety. And I still have moments if I get stressed about something, I will notice I will have like really irrational anxiety about stuff. And so I just have to like kind of like self-talk myself out of the anxiety, or what usually happens is I talk to like 5 people about it who tell me that like this is not something to be worried about, etc., etc. While working, I would become super anxious if like, let's say my boss out of nowhere says like, hey, I want to meet with you tomorrow, and it's literally probably nothing bad, but I would be like having trouble going to sleep that night worrying that like I was going to be fired or something, even though I hadn't done anything to be fired. So it's still something that I struggle with now, but it was definitely much more prevalent as a kid. But I don't know, but I was also really goofy. One funny thing that people would find really strange is I dyed my hair black once, and actually one of the first few times that I hung out with my husband, I think that I dressed as a goth for Halloween and went out, and he was like not into it at all, but I was like having so much fun. My friends at the time had more like alternative dressing styles, and so I just went with the flow with that. And that's a thing about me as a child too. I just kind of picked up hobbies or whatever of the friends that I made. I wasn't picky with my friends. So yeah, I don't really know how to describe as I was as a child. I still had red hair. I've always been a major redhead. I've always liked being outdoors and keeping really, really busy, which is actually something that I guess I don't do as much now because I can't work, but I am, you know, trying to do what I can to keep busy. Actually, I almost forgot probably one of the like biggest personality traits when I was a kid was I was an extremely avid reader. Now I still love reading now, but I have a harder time just like picking up a book and just reading the entire thing in whole. And there would be some times that I would read 2 books in one day. Now these are, you know, like youth novels, they're not very long or whatever. I was like obsessed with the Babysitter Club. I think I may have read 3 in one day as a child. So I was definitely a huge, huge reader. I used to read at my dad's house while everyone was like, it was chaotic because if you haven't seen some of my other videos where I've mentioned it, there was a lot of kids. So there'd be somebody watching TV, and actually at one point we had 2 TVs in the exact same room and a computer, which doesn't make sense, but we'd be all fighting for volume, and I'd just be laying on the couch reading a book. Our Life on a Budget, which is a fellow Canadian YouTuber, asks, now that you're immersed in the US, what are the 3 biggest differences you found between life there and life in Canada? So, there's not really that many differences, or there's not any other than, you know, like the healthcare stuff that I mentioned. There's not really any differences that affect me or have a positive or a negative impact whatsoever. Personally, the area that I'm in is a little less multicultural than what I'm used to in Toronto, but we also have a higher amounts of other cultures that I had less exposure to. So one thing that's very, very different is you walk around and you hear Spanish like everywhere, which I find really, really cool. I don't understand Spanish. We went to a Day of the Dead festival the one weekend, I guess the weekend that the Day of the Dead festival is, and that was really, really cool. So we may or may not have Day of the Dead festivals in Canada, but I don't think that they would be as extensive as it was for kind of a small city. And that was cool. And yeah, going around places and kind of just seeing stores that are just in, like their signs are in Spanish and everything. I find that really cool. Another difference would be just, it's a very simple thing, but just the way kind of the roads work. They just have some slightly different rules that were very scary for my husband and I to kind of adjust to. So the way that they merge lanes here in California is a lot different, and there are definitely people who are much more aggressive drivers who try to get in front of you, and that just probably wouldn't happen in Canada. People merge lanes very far ahead of time. There's a lot more notice in Canada that the lanes are going to merge, and in California it's very soon before you have to do it, and you usually wait till the end. It's a lot of times someone tries to cut you off, and that can be pretty scary. And sort of related to traffic stuff, it's very obvious to tell where you can park and where you can't park. There's not all this like, here's a sign, and if you read the sign exactly as it means, you will probably still get a parking ticket because it doesn't make any sense. Now that could happen still in certain places around here, but generally they paint red. If there is red along the curb, you cannot park there. I even have gone over the meter, like my meter has run out and I didn't get a ticket. I don't think they give parking tickets a lot around here, which is great. So I was parked in a legal spot, but my timer was out, and it was only 25 cents an hour, so I guess I just didn't realize how long I was going to be parking there for. And yeah, in general, I have found parking to be easier. I've gone to a bigger city and it was nothing like trying to park in Toronto. It was not nearly as expensive. The surrounding parking areas, we actually just found a place to park for free and just walked to where we were going, which is really, really cool. And the third major difference that I've noticed, at least in the area I live, is I guess there's a lot of protection of wild animals here. And I mean, we have that in Canada too, but it's usually confined to areas that people can't really trample in a lot. So you'll be going somewhere and there's, you know, a lot of different types of birds that you've never seen before, and it's just really cool. It's easy to access and you don't have to pay anything for it. A lot of times I'm walking on a really pretty trail and just a rabbit that comes running past me, and that's really, really cool. Those areas are obviously dogs on leash only, and I get really mad when I see dogs off leash because please don't kill the wild animals. Apparently there is lots of mice or rats as well, but I've never seen them. And so that's pretty cool. I mean, we have wild animals that roam around in Canada or get into cities like bears and moose and deer and stuff like that, but they're just completely different animals that are roaming around, at least in this part. And lastly, Connie Porter asks, what is your biggest expense besides rent and food? And sadly, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I do have my Excel spreadsheet, or it's a Google spreadsheet that goes right to my phone, and I'm literally just going to scroll to it and figure out. It seems like the next biggest expense is my spending category. That's pretty embarrassing. I haven't been spending that much necessarily every month, and pretty much tied with that is our payment back towards the car. So it's not really an expense, but we borrowed money from our savings account to purchase our car in cash, and so I've been paying a portion of that back every month. I hope you guys like this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if there's any other questions you guys have, let me know in the comments down below and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye.